Welcome everybody. Let's give everybody a minute or two, as we always do. Let you folks trickle in. I know, kids are usually kicking your door down, so um, it's hard to be too consistent with time. Tell me if I'm dead wrong, but that's been my experience with your community. Um, some of you will probably recognize my co-host here, Anne Marie Sanderson, checking in from Greenville, South Carolina. So Anne Marie, for those of you that don't know her, is our high school partnership manager. What's it been 2 years you've been with us, Anne Marie?
I
Yeah.
have.
So she's been with us 2 years or so in this role for the last year or so. So I asked her a couple weeks ago, to encourage her, say get outside your comfort zone, sister. Let's get on the big screen together, just so you all could put a face to the name, because I know a lot of the communication that we send out comes from Anne Marie and from Peg and myself sometimes and stuff like that. But anyways, just want to kind of further insert her in the mix, so to speak. And she's kind of our conference queen, right? She's all over the country at different ACACs, obviously the NACACs and the ASCA, the big ones, but then these regional
Mhm.
ones and these state ones. So I know SACAC a few weeks ago, right? MASCA up here in Mass,
Coming up on WACAC in a couple weeks in
WACAC,
Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
So again, we want you, it's funnest for us when we actually have more organic, natural relationships, get to see
Yeah.
each other in the flesh. So please
Sure.
come say hi whenever you see us. And again, usually if we're out there in the wild, Anne Marie's going to be there and be a part of it. And if you don't already partner with us, please, I don't know if you have that link yet, or you're gonna have to wait till the end, Anne Marie, to share
Yeah.
it. Please talk to us, book some time with Anne Marie, learn how we support. I see a lot of our partners on here that show up every other week, but we're providing all our resources to their schools in different capacities. So please, at a minimum, do your due diligence, check us out, and make sure that you are offering all that you can to your community on this financial aid scholarship front. Because what we're going to talk about today, I am going to. So there was an announcement that came out on Wednesday that got basically no mainstream media. I'm willing to bet that just about all of you, if not all of you, haven't even heard kind of some of the stuff that I'm about to share. But I would argue, of all of these Department of Education changes and all the kind of these big headlines, what came out Monday was by far, I would argue, by far the most substantive stuff, where now we have a really good, clearer idea of what's actually going to happen. What do these changes actually mean? What are the impacts going to be, et cetera? So that's really going to be the focus that we're going to talk about today. By the way, Marie, is there anything else that you wanted to say? Let me say one more thing before you do. But what I think is kind of cool, and Anne Marie's not unique to this on our team, but she's living this right now, right? She's a parent of a college parent, and your youngest is a is it senior, junior in high school?
She's rising junior, so we're starting to look at colleges and really in the thick of it.
Right. So you're living this in real time,
Mhm.
and that's really what brought her to us, along with some other folks on our team, where they were just going through this as parents. And like, again, like you all know your parents are, or maybe you, if you've gone through this, are going through this, like, holy shit, what do I do? This is confusing. This is overwhelming. This is scary. These prices, how does this black box works, right? And seeking out resources, found us and became kind of like, I don't know, a power user of sorts, I would say. And then we just, again, kind of organically, like, hey, you're our people and
Yeah.
you're with it and you get it. So that's kind of how we found each other. I'm
Yep.
oversimplifying, but anyways, that's
Yeah.
another.
Well, I was just going to say I have juniors in college as well. So uh, I think I'm on both ends. So I was very much the mom with the kind of head in the sand for the first two, and had one luckily that kind of got it or did get it, and the other one who didn't necessarily want to pay attention. So we're really seeing that in real life of what that happens or what that looks like now. as they're approaching their senior year in college. And it allows me to kind of do things a little differently with the younger ones. So for sure, I get who you're talking to, but I also have quite an extensive background in education and teaching and being part of the schools. So I get your job really well as well.
Yeah, I think so. So again, for those of you that haven't had the pleasure, please take advantage and she's a doll. You'll love her like we do. Okay, so before I get into the bulk of what I want to talk about today and just coach you guys up on, um, I do want to talk about just one thing before that is very kind of time sensitive here, and I've been talking about this a fair amount on my media tour, so to speak, as different folks have me on to again try to educate their regions, I guess. But on May 5th, right? So that's Monday. Okay, so whatever, 5 days from now, um, fam families, students and parent borrowers that had a federal loan that were in default, the chickens are coming home to roost. The federal government is coming after that money. So they have been on pause for 5 years, about a little bit less than that. But during COVID, borrowers that were in default, and the to be in default means you haven't made a payment for 270 days, right? So for a better part of a year, you haven't made a payment for whatever many reasons. And by the way, there's 5 million individuals that fit into this, or it's not a small number. Um,
Mhm.
but they got put on pause during COVID, and this extended for a significant period after, um, where really they just kind of got put in purgatory, if that's the right word, in a good way, where the federal government basically said, don't worry about it, just this thing's on pause. Well, we will revisit it at some point. So I know, and some of this is anecdotal, some of this is more data driven. That you, everybody's different in this group, but there's a percentage that we're just hoping this was gonna just go away, and that was kind of the strategy. Like, all right, well, it's been this many years, maybe, and there's this talk of forgiveness. Maybe that's our group, and and others that are just like, again, kind of head in the sand, which I get it, I do that, right? We all do. But you, they cannot ignore it anymore. So if there's just anybody in your ecosystem that you think might be in this category, they have to contact their loan servicers today. And I'll tell you why it's so important. Because if they do not, what's going to happen again when these go into repayment is the federal government's going to garnish wages. Okay, if you're a parent that took out a plus loan and you're on Social Security, they're going to garnish Social Security. Okay, and there's all the details are not completely transparent, but it looks like they're going to take up to 15%, on a monthly basis. But the way that I'm looking at this, and it's I'm pretty clear on this understanding, is that if you don't set up a repayment plan proactively, they're going to automatically kind of default put you on the highest monthly payment, right? So that's really significant. So these it's really important that for these individuals that are in this category, and it stinks and it's just tough news for them, and I have a lot of compassion for these guys, but they got to be proactive now, right? They have to reach out to their loan servicer, and if the biggest concern is monthly cash flow, get on an income driven repayment plan to make sure that when that payment comes out, you're making those payments instead of having wages or Social Security garnished, and it's at a monthly cash flow that's manageable, right? Because again, if you do nothing, that strategy, you will get the highest monthly payment, and they will get it, right? They're getting it. So anyways, that I thought didn't get a ton of press either, which I was a little bit surprised about. Thought there could have been more. So please just kind of spread the word. I know again, we're talking about families getting ready to take on this process, but I would I thought that was noteworthy at a minimum. Okay. So what dropped on Monday here? What dropped on Monday is the let's see. Sorry guys, let me share my screen. Well, I'll share my screen in a second. Let me just kind of give an overview first. So we learned for the the first time really, what is these changes to the federal government and the Department of Education, let's see, am I still, hold on, I lost you guys. Am I still on here, Anne Marie? Oh, okay. Oh, you were zooming. Okay.
You
Sorry, I
are.
lost. I thought I left the webinar altogether here. But we got some tangible, very tangible, more specific changes that this regime wants to push through and on this new bill, right? These so I've been hearing about, okay, and we've seen, all these people get axed from the Department of Education, all these changes are coming, and when the federal government shouldn't be in the loan business, and colleges need to have some skin in the game here. We've been hearing a lot of that talk from kind of a high level, a meta level without any specifics. We got them on Monday. And quite frankly, they were, I guess, more aggressive than I even anticipated. Which again, shame on me. I should have we had enough hints here that was the side they were going to miss on. And look at it, like most of these things, I put some of these in the bad news category. I put some of these in the ho hum category. I put some of these in the great news category. So it's kind of a smattering. Um, what's interesting is that if you guys haven't checked this out already, our team recently, leadership team spearheaded by our CEO, put out a position paper. And so if you haven't checked that out, please check it out, because we are the biggest thing we want is feedback, right? And to give you a little context there, as these massive changes were happening and being proposed, we kind of looked at ourselves and said, like, well, what are we doing to help? And not just, we're going to continue to do what we do in terms of educating you all and educating all the stakeholders, right? Largely parents and students. But what recommendations would we want to see happen on a system-wide level, right? Government, colleges, Wall Street, right? And we took this as an opportunity to say, if we had a blank canvas, if we were just starting kind of college over in America today, what are some of the things that we would implement that we would think would improve, just the structure, of this system. So that's kind of the point of it, right? And we took some shots here. There's some things in there that I think are, I don't know if controversial is the right word or whatever, but we don't think we're geniuses here, right? We need help from other people that are invested in higher education here in this country that are going to have better ideas than we do. But I think it's a good starting point, and that's the point of our position paper, is to be like, here's some things that we think could have an immediate impact and just be good for all parties involved. So again, we want some feedback. We've got some great feedback already, and we're already thinking about, like, oh, we didn't think of this, and devil's advocate opinions, which are always, equally important. So um, I share all that to say there was some pretty some of these changes are very aligned with what we're recommending, and if not exactly kind of there in spirit. So I will obviously hit on those specifically. So Anne Marie is going to send out one of the links she shares, and I don't know if that was the one you shared already, but if not, during the presentation today, as a follow up, we're going to give these to you all, because I think this is a great kind of breakdown of these changes, and I just want to talk about them. Um, so we'll pick each one of these off, and again, please fire away with questions, right? And as always, guys, it doesn't have ask questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about what we're talking about specifically. Obviously, tomorrow's May 1st. So kind of D-Day for the class 2025 and submitting deposits. I will tell you, this week, more than we ever have historically, we've got more successful appeals at colleges that we were denied initially. Right. So all these colleges don't necessarily have their beds filled, or a little bit nervous. You might consider sending out one more blast to families to say, hey, nothing wrong with sending out a Hail Mary, because again, we've had the most we've ever had this late in April in terms of successful appeals that were initially denied.
Matt, I just wanted to intercede real quick.
Please.
I put it in the chat, but the position paper, the link for anybody that's wanting to read it will come out tomorrow in the newsletter as well. So take a look there and they'll be able to read both the letter as well as kind of our take on it. In their survey, we want to hear what counselors are thinking and how you feel about it. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you for saying that because yeah, I think especially from your group, I'd love to hear from because I think we're almost working on the assumption that we probably missed some stuff, right? Like we're and overlook some things that we didn't see because we don't have your vantage point. So we would love that. Okay, so what are the big takeaways here? No more subsidized loans. Okay, so the federal direct student loan, this is the loan that every student is entitled to take advantage of. Um, so long as they complete the FAFSA, right? It totals $27,000 over the course of 4 years, 5,500 freshman year, 6,500 sophomore year, 7,500 junior and senior year. Anybody that needs to borrow, this is our one kind of universal recommendation. You start here. This is the best loan that's available, the only one where the student doesn't need a cosigner, doesn't need established credit, low fixed interest rate, really flexible repayment terms, won't get a bill until 6 months after college, right? It's where everybody should start the borrowing process, okay? And if a student graduates with this loan and that's the only debt they have, you've hit a grand slam as a family, okay? Um, Subsidized, what's that mean? It used to, well, if this gets pushed through, starting next year, so for the class 2026 and moving forward, it will nobody will be eligible for subsidized loans, which means the subsidized loans do not accrue interest during college, and then you get a 6 months grace period afterwards. So basically, the federal government picks up the interest while the student's in school, and then again, that 6 months after graduation. Um, the maximum amount of that $27,000 that was eligible for a subsidized portion was 19,000, right? So, and again, who's eligible for that is tied to your student aid index, your financial aid eligibility. Okay, so that's gone. So that's a bummer. Nobody likes to pay interest, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm not losing sleep over this. It got a little bit more expensive to borrow. It's not insane, right? And again, for me, just like I said, if you graduate with college with just this federal direct student loan, you did great, right? You did great. I don't care where you went to college. I don't care what you're majoring in, what you want to pursue as a career. You're not going to be, screwed and have this insane debt over your head. You're going to have a manageable debt over your head. And in terms of paying interest, cost of doing business. Now that might be a little harsh. But I'm just of some of these changes that I don't like, which obviously we'll hit on. Um, this one I don't think is going to be this big negative disruption. Okay, it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's okay, right? We're going to be fine with that. This one is the one that I don't know. So plus loans gone, guys. Plus loans gone starting next year. Grad plus loans eliminated, but we'll come back to that. And obviously, that's not the immediate concern. But so this one is a really, really hard one. Now, interestingly enough, we recommend in our paper that the federal government get out of the loan business altogether. So this includes plus loans. So this is aligned with what some of our recommendations are. Now we have different I don't know, guardrails in place to help with this. That I don't know if I haven't seen any news that this regime kind of had similar things to help offset this challenge. But it's going to be a massive challenge, as I'm sure many of you know. I guarantee a meaningful percentage of your families are sending their kids to school on the backs of the plus loan. And oftentimes, certainly not always, but a percentage of those, it's because it's the only loan they qualified for. They don't have good credit. They don't have a high income, so they were denied via the private sector. They were denied via state loans that are and the only one that they qualified for was the plus loan. So I'm really, really concerned specifically for those that are in college currently and the class 2025. Sorry, the class 2025 is going to be okay because they can use it for at least for freshman year because it's definitely going to be there for this year. But next year, if you're at a college and you're thriving and you're only there because your parents only qualified for a plus loan, the rug could get pulled out from underneath you in a way that I'm really concerned about. So, I mean, like one of the things that we proposed and um, I'm really hoping the federal government does, but I haven't seen anything to support this, is that they allow folks that are in college already that are there because they needed to use a plus loan basically get grandfathered into that program and they sunset it that way. So they say, okay, if we're gonna eliminate the plus loan July 1st, 2026, which is what it's, earmarked for, nobody, in high school and moving forward and go to college can have access to it. But if you're already in college on the plus loan, we'll let you kind of finish your journey there. I hope they do that. I'm not seeing evidence that they are. So this is like the group of people that I'm most concerned about. So given what I just shared, why would we ever propose for getting rid of that? Why would we propose for, that it's okay to get rid of the plus loan? Well, and this is a longer conversation, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, and we're going to talk about that position paper for as long as anybody will listen to us, moving forward here. But if you this is and anybody that kind of studies this space or has lived in this space, and I say this space, higher education in the United States of America, we're pretty much all in consensus that the number one culprit for college costs getting out of control and outpacing inflation by the rate that it has is the plus loan. Just about any of us, if you say pick one thing, and of course it's not one thing, it's a multitude of factors. But if we had to rank order, what's the biggest reason that college prices have got friggin' insane? We're now over $100,000 a year. It's the plus loan, full stop, right? Because this is the federal government telling the colleges that we're going to write you a blank check. Okay. And even if, quite frankly, this family should not, it's reckless to borrow this much money. That's the reason why they didn't qualify in the private sector, because it's too much to borrow and they don't have any income and they have bad credit. This is a irresponsible investment. Think of like the housing bubble, right? In 2008, this is exactly how it happened, kind of the collapse in it. They're giving the colleges know that they can charge whatever the hell they want, and even if people can't afford it, the federal government's going to write a check for as much as they want, right? And these families are going to take it because we're not disciplined enough as consumers to be able to uh, you make those decisions without the guardrails. And guess what? I wouldn't be either, right? I say it all the time. When I went to go get, apply for a mortgage when my wife and I bought our house, whatever it was, 12 years ago or something like that, if I had said, just pick out your favorite house and we'll give you a loan for whatever, even if the math says you don't have enough income and assets to actually be able to do it. I know, Anne Marie, you know my personality, Anne Marie. I'd have been like, give me that beautiful $5 million one on the beach. I'll figure it out someday. That would have been me, right? And most people, and again, for a decision like this, God, my kid worked their butt off and they got into this college. They did their job. And I'm here as a parent feeling all this shame, all this guilt that I didn't save enough, which who can save enough for freaking $100,000 a year, right? Um, and yeah, I'll sign off on a loan and we'll figure it out, right? And again, we'll figure it out is kind of the death sentence is the $1.7 trillion in debt, right? So and believe me, guys, this is so nuanced. This is so nuanced, and that's why it's so hard. Like when we challenge ourselves with this position paper to say like, because we were basically like most people in my experience that have a big problem with higher education and basically say some version of it's not working, right? Too many people are going into debt and we're not having good outcomes. The return on the investment isn't there with enough consistency for enough kids. The affordability, we're leaving the ones that need the most help behind. um we all agree with those things, but to say, well, most people just kind of, yell at the clouds about it. We're trying to say, okay, so you fix it, right? And we're trying to do that. And guess what? It's friggin' hard because there is so much nuance on there. And that's why this one internally, for myself personally, was the one of the last, I would say, leaders in our company to say, I no, we can't get rid of the plus loans. We can't. It was kind of a hill I was dying on for a while, but honestly, I came all the way around because the folks on my team, their data was better than mine essentially, and that's kind of how I lost the argument. Because what's going to happen, guys, the dominoes that's going to happen is if when these families get denied these loans, they're going to do one of two things. What we really hope, and again, this is where we help them this is where we want to help them get to, where we have to help them get to, is they go to a school that's more affordable, right? They go the more affordable path because they don't have that option to overextend themselves, right? In a way that they probably shouldn't. We're going to see some people not go to college here. And that's kind of an interesting one, right? On the surface, it's like that's blasphemy, and in some ways, and for some families, it is. Like there's going to be some families that slip through the cracks here, and students, and like that's what we're trying to solve for as much as possible here. But guess what? College is no longer the ticket to the middle class that it used to be, in the same guarantee. And again, it what we spell this out in the position paper, but it's we want to help people get on their right path, and everybody has a different right path as quickly as possible. And that's not everybody for college. So that's why you'll see in the position paper we're huge advocates for making trade schools free, for example, right? Making community college free is another, big kind of get of ours of maybe this kind of less traditional route, albeit uh I have a harder time with that, is selling that one too. But the point is we have to think more critically about this as consumers, right? And once the colleges do not get this blank check for every single student from the federal government every year, guess what's going to happen? This is just how economics and free markets work. The price is going to come down. The price is going to come down. So that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, right? And there's going to be some short-term pain, and it's going to be meaningful pain. Okay, meaningful pain. So I don't want to undersell that. But but this is what we're trying to do, trying to build a better system. So anyways, Anne Marie, big stump speech day for me. So, I'm sorry you have to sit through a couple iterations of this, everybody else too, for that matter. But whatever. This stuff gets me riled up, that. Pell Grant restrictions. I'm probably most worried about this one, to be honest with you. They have not given us any specifics aside from one, and that's kind of this first X here that Anne Marie put in there. They basically said there's going to be more restrictions. Again, that worries me because the math I'm doing is okay. You're going to have even a smaller income to be eligible for this, right? Which again, it's already too small, right? And again, when I say too small, I mean the threshold, right? It's like, yeah, oh, you're a family of five, living on $70,000 household income outside of Boston. Like that's next to impossible to freaking live, right? So I'm worried that those are going to come down even further. I'm worried that the amounts, if they don't even stay where they are going to go down. That's speculation, right? Now, most of my speculation, and this, believe me, does not make me a genius because they're not subtle. Most of my speculation has come to fruition so far here. I hope I'm wrong about that one. Here's the one that they did give us. You're not eligible for Pell Grants if you don't take more than 6 credits. And I'll tell you what really upsets me about this. And it's like I'm thinking of like some individuals here. Like I get emotional about it, quite frankly, because these are use cases that I know about, right? Where a student, okay, it could be a kid, could be a parent, wants to get a college degree, but they can only go to community college part-time because they have to work to live. And they can't afford even that, right? So they depend on the Pell Grants. Excuse me, did not have this on my bingo card today. Anne Marie, but I'm thinking about those people, and
I
I
know. I know. Well, and I was just gonna say, one, there are so many that are just trying to make a better life. And so this getting that education is the way, is one of the ways. And if they're taking that away, it is heartbreaking because they're
yeah.
doing what they're supposed to be doing and really trying to make a better life for themselves and for their children and families. And it's hard to see that taken away from them.
Yeah, and it's like everything that we try to stand for, right, in this country. It's like how what are we doing here? Like
Yeah.
what are we doing? And I understand their rationale, I think, right? I vehemently disagree with it because you can't I don't think anybody will be able to talk me out of that use case of that person, of which there's a lot of them, doesn't deserve help from us, right? Because there is data that when you for students that are going to community college, part time and are not taking a lot of credits, they don't finish community college, right?
Right.
There's an overwhelming number that don't finish. So I understand where they're coming from that group, and that data is compelling. And I think I'm speculating here, but I think the decision makers are going like, look, at this is wasted funds anyways. These students don't graduate anyways, so let's kind of reallocate here. So I can at least appreciate the rationale, but again, that does not trump the percentage of people that need our help, right? So, anyways, sorry for the letting the emotions bleed out here, but that's me too, Anne Marie. What are we gonna do?
Showing your
Eh,
heart.
So this fourth one here, to me, for the most part, this is much ado about nothing. Okay, right now we did have, as of a few weeks ago, five different income-driven repayment plans, and that means if you have a federal loan, once they go into repayment, you can cap the amount of your monthly payment, and that cap is tied to the amount of income that you take home, right? So it's a nice concept where you can't get too far. Um, you can't or you can't get too out of control in terms of the monthly payment that you have, right? And the concept is, hey, you can be able to go have some sort of financial independence, and this isn't going to be 90% of your debits coming out each month. And again, there's five of them. That's probably overkill. The most flexible one they already got rid of. That's the save plan. There's four other ones. They're consolidating these into one. Fine, right? And in some ways, it simplifies it. So. Um, so I'm okay with that, and there's another big win in here if that coincides with this because the and I have some personal experience with this. They're going to no longer allow, and this is a great consumer protection. They're going to no longer allow, if you're in an income-driven repayment plan, for the borrower to go into what's called reverse amortization. Okay, now that is a fancy term, but what it means is that the if a student is making their minimum monthly payment because they need to, so they're on this income-driven repayment plan, they're making their minimum monthly payment that is as much as they can possibly make, but that monthly payment is less than the interest that accrues each month. And guess what? I've been there before. So in other words, let's say you're making a $200 monthly payment, but the interest that's accruing each month is 250. So you're making your payments each month, and your freaking principal, the bill is getting higher. Now, my wife and I lived that for it was probably a couple of years because she went to law school, right? Obviously, very expensive, borrowed everything. And and she graduated. She's trying to start her career. I'm trying to start my career, right? We're however old we were, 24 or something like that, right? Back in the glory days. But like and again, we're just whatever scraping. First lived with my parents and got the whatever apartment, right? To try to just live on our own, eating dinner on the floor, right? I remember before we had a couch, right? And being like, I remember being like, someday I'm gonna get you a couch. But that would be it was so demoralizing to be like we're making this monthly payment and the bill is going up, right? And again, we signed up for it and eventually we got on our feet and whatever, it worked out for us. Um, but I kind of love this because you're still going to have to make your monthly payments, right? But they will get rid of the interest. So these families are paying the money back. And so I just think I like that. I like that, and I think it's a win. Um, so here's what I'm most excited about. And again, obviously the devil will be in the details, and we know very little outside of again another little Easter egg that they dropped in here for us. But colleges will be held accountable. Wow, hallelujah, right? It's about time, and again, I love the spirit of this. We kind of take it a step further in our position paper and have, I think, some more tangible ways of like, well, what does this mean? Um, but here's the little kind of hint, not so little. The language that they used is that if some of the federal money, if the student does not pay back some of the federal money that they borrowed to send to a college, the college is on the hook for that. So I friggin' love the spirit of that. Because again, there are so many instances where these colleges know, okay, they know this is an irresponsible investment for this family. And guess what? Credit to some colleges, I've had individuals say that before, right? JP Schmidt, he's a team member of ours, friend, colleague, etc. He used to be the director of admissions at USC, Southern California, and he used to say that, and he took a lot of pride in that. As difficult as a conversation as that was for him to have, he that's just kind of his own ethics, morals, whatever. He would do that, even though it's not necessarily good business for USC. And granted, USC, they're not going to have any empty beds, but um, and credit to my alma mater, I had a Stonehill College. I had somebody in financial aid years back tell that to a family I was working with, and again in a really compassionate, nice way. Um, and again, it happens, but we're talking about the exceptions here, right? We're talking about the exceptions, and these colleges have their own financial incentives. That's not their fault. That's you know, they're businesses, right? They're businesses that don't pay taxes. That's for another conversation. We actually make it part of our conversation because we think if you don't do certain things, guess what? You should no longer qualify as a nonprofit entity, right? And you should be taxed accordingly. So you'll see that in our position paper as well, and I think we do a decent job spelling that out. Um, but conceptually, damn, I love this. If you're gonna charge this and you're gonna allow these families to borrow this, there better be some assurances that they're gonna graduate and they're gonna graduate with great opportunities. And you're gonna do everything in your power and you're gonna put your money where your mouth is, not all in freaking marketing and
Yep.
outcome, right? You're gonna put your money in outcomes for these guys. Now, so I just love this because again, we're all stakeholders here. Federal government, certainly us as consumers, right? School counselors, but the colleges are huge stakeholders too. But they don't have enough accountability in my mind. So I just love this conceptually. I'll tell you, Amory, and again, we have details to follow here because we're doing the position paper hits almost like bullet points for what we want to change and implement. And then we're doing a different version that goes further into each. We're releasing one May, June, July, August, I believe, that goes further because we want a concern. Okay, and this is a real one on a high level for colleges that say, okay, they're going to have some skin in the game here. If they don't have good results, it's going to cost them money. And let's be clear, that's the biggest driver, okay, for all of this, and that's okay. That's just the reality. Um, are they going to cherry pick uh, families that have more resources, right? Is this going to be another advantage? Are we going to be leaving folks? You could see again if colleges need to have more skin in the game here. Could one of the impacts be there that again the folks that need the most help are getting left behind because they're seen as too high risk type of deal, right? So that's one of the really hard things that we gotta solve for here. And I'll kind of tease some of the solutions that we have proposed. I have no idea if they align with what this regime has proposed. But you can see that this is one of these things where, and again, this is kind of how we got here. Best intentions, right? Best intentions with unintended negative consequences. If we don't hold these colleges accountable in the right way, you could see that happening, right? So again, that's a concern, but the spirit of it, oh, I love it, and I hope we get I hope we get close there. So I don't know if anybody had any questions. And again, they can they do not have to be related to my stump speech here and this stuff. But again, I want to make sure that you guys are aware of all this stuff, and we try to always tie it back to like, okay, now what do I do about it, right? And that should as the mindset should always be. And our number one solution, the number one solution that we have is we're always going to point you back to our technology, right? And back to our resources and education, right? Because it's again on my little media tour here, because it always kind of ends with like, okay, well, what should parents do, right? And the number one thing is start now, be engaged, be educated, right? Understand what you can control versus what you can't and take action there, right? And we say all the time, obviously, we're biased. We think we're the best in the world at this stuff, and I would happy to have that argument with anybody, but we're not the only show in town, right? I always say, if you don't work with us, work with our competition. I don't care, but pay attention, okay? Understand what our SAI is, what these colleges are actually going to cost us before we go to school. What's it going to cost over 4 years versus our budget? How much are we going to have to borrow, right? Uh, did we get a good deal, right? One of the most powerful parts of our platform is they upload their financial aid award letters. We tell you, we translate it, right? 914 different ways awards were presented last year. We put them into one uniform award, right? So that you guys and your students can award, compare side by side in one kind of apples to apples ways. And then we tell you, did you get a good deal? Are you like my buddies at Boston College that usually, unbeknownst to end users, get $10,000 less than they should have, right? We'll flag that and say you should appeal, right? For the class 2025, we're still saying, guys, okay, it's going to be harder to borrow. Guess what? Let's make sure we have to borrow less. Throw in your last ditch, appeal effort now. Um, please, 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 guys, we're starting really. I think it's next week. Yeah, starting next week for the class 2025. All of our education is going to be around really borrowing, right? We have other stuff like, okay, if you have 529, should you use it all up front or spread it out over 4 years? Or grandparents are chipping in, how should we do that? But the borrowing is the biggest challenge here. Since I've been doing this again 20 years, this is going to be the probably most expensive, but also most challenging year in terms of borrowing. We need to be educating people, because I'll tell you, and guess what? We are being more intentional to get deeper relationships with these lenders. Okay, so we can try to have influence, essentially, right? Um, the more we learn, kind of the more scumbaggy they generally all are. Nice guys, nice gals, right? Nice people, probably good parents and partners and all that. But the companies they work for, their incentives are misaligned from ours, right? Because no matter how nice and clever they talk, the more families borrow, the better it is for business. And the higher rate that they borrow it at, the better it is for business. There's just no getting around that. Um, and we really come to learn the ideal borrower for, Sally Mae and College Ave and all of them, quite frankly, is the uneducated one that just at the buzzer needs to go get this money real quick, and that's their dream borrower. So we have to fight that and make sure that families are shopping and getting the lowest rate for them, and understand that that's, if I meet with 10 different families, I'm probably going to have 10 different recommendations, right? In terms of their best loan option. So we need to help them find out which one is best. And again, I was probably too disparaging to these lenders. We've had some meaningful conversations, and again, we're trying to, one group, Ascent, yeah, they're not a household name by any stretch, but they told us, because here's what we're trying to do. We're essentially trying to go to them and negotiate a deal for our community, okay, and say, hey, if we send everybody your way, can you guarantee you'll give the, best lowest rate, whatever? And this Ascent group is getting there pretty close. And in our, this has not been official yet or whatever, but we're kind of trending towards, and basically I would say have a handshake agreement in place that says, hey, if tell parents to go shop, bring us the best rate you have. We'll beat that and take half a percentage off. That's what we want to try to do. And again, with as many lenders as possible, so we can, because again, my worry is that the federal government is saying, hey, let's take us out of this borrowing space. And by the way, they're 92% of loans are through the federal government. The Sally Mae's of the world, they only have 8% of the market, which is crazy. So that means they're going to control almost all of it. And they're saying, let the markets work as they should and blah, blah, blah. We're leaving it up to like 5 banks, okay, of like the old boys club here. And I want to believe in the power of markets and competition and may the best rate and repayment plan win. And guess what? We benefit as consumers. I think that's a little being naively optimistic, right? I think there's going to be a little bit of wink, wink. Federal government's not here. Let's all raise the floor for the best rate collectively, and be a very powerful cartel. So I hope I'm wrong there, but again, I've the more I learn about these guys, the more confident I feel, and that's how it could play out. So, anyways, please take advantage of our education. Make sure that you're distributing that out for your or pay attention to yourself, and then go coach up your families, or send out our stuff directly to your family so we can coach them up. And because again, this year it's going to get more expensive to borrow. It's going to get harder to borrow, and it's just more important, in my opinion, than ever has been, that they find the right spot for them in terms of the best loan. Okay. I think, yeah, and again, if you haven't already, guys, start with meeting with Marie, learn more about us, get the dirt. Go talk to some other schools that have partnered with us, get their opinion direct from them in terms of the good, bad, and the ugly, in terms of leveraging what we have to offer. Yeah,
And I
again,
just put in the chat a couple things. The podcast that you and Peg are talking a little more about that bill, and really given kind of the cliff notes today, but really digging in on podcast that'll be released tonight at 5 p.m. It's a little early than we normally do on Thursdays. And then also I put on there the school counselor page, which has a lot of information, including Matt's cliff notes that he shared earlier during this call. And then the newsletter, the counselor newsletter, is actually coming out tomorrow. I know that's a lot of information, but it all is really good stuff that you can share. There's some really good articles out there that you can either share with your families or for you to educate and kind of get caught up as well.
yeah, thanks, Am, and
Mhm.
appreciate you jumping on here. I'll cut class early here, if unless there's any other questions, but I'll give it a going once, going twice, going 3 times. Um, yeah, and yeah, on the whole, there's again, we always try to say, like, all right, where's the silver lining? Let's be optimistic. Panic is never in the game plan. But there's some, as you saw from me, some things I'm disheartened about, and trying to, again, rationalize. And that one's a hard one to fill. The Pell Grant one is a hard one to find a silver lining, and I hadn't really found one yet, quite frankly. But we're gonna figure it out, right? And again,
Lean on us. We're here to
yeah,
help.
exactly. So, all right, y'all. I appreciate you, and thanks for taking so much time out of your day. I know how busy you guys are, and always so grateful that you go out of your way to keep yourself educated and engaged, et cetera, et cetera. So, thanks all. Thanks, Anne Marie.
In a couple weeks.
Bye.